Are elite prospects actually watching that closely?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville is free and available on all streaming services. 5 days a week, your team every day. We are conducting another weekly mailbag. 9 great questions that you all have asked. 6 regarding men's basketball and 3 regarding football. We'll discuss the impact of Mikel Brown Jr.'s success on future recruiting, Khani Rooths' development, how important is Vince Marorrow to the Louisville football recruiting efforts, and much more. But first, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, so we got 9 questions total. We will answer 3 questions per segment. The first 2 segments will be basketball questions, and then the final segment will be tackling those football questions. These are some really good questions you all asked me. Some of them stumped me to where I had to kind of think about them for a little while, but here are my answers. Let's go ahead and get into the questions. With Jordan Smith's comments, the question needs to be asked, are elite prospects really waiting to see how Mikel Brown Jr. plays for Pat Kelsey this fall? For those that didn't see, number 1 combo guard in the country, Jordan Smith, a guy that has visited Louisville. He's supposed to visit Louisville again coming up this fall. He mentioned in an article, and of course I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have the exact quote, but basically that, he's keeping an eye on how well Mikel Brown Jr. plays this season for Louisville, and that is going to have a pretty decent impact on the Cardinals' recruiting efforts. Now, that wasn't the only thing that Jordan said. Jordan did give Pat Kelsey his props, but it is an interesting comment to make because it's something that we've discussed on this show. I think that it's not fully one way or the other. Like, it's not like, oh, well, Louisville's not going to land a 5-star prospect until we see Mikel Brown Jr. play good. And if he doesn't, no one's going to commit here. But I also don't think it's a situation where, like, yeah, Mikel's play doesn't have an impact whatsoever, because it does. I think the truth is right there in the middle. I think that Pat Kelsey and company have done a great job positioning the Cardinals in great spots in respective recruitments. But I think what will help, especially for those guys that delay their commitment, potentially Tyron Stokes, potentially, I don't know when Tay Kenny is supposed to be announcing, Deron Rippey Jr., Cole Clower, multiple players that the Cardinals are going after. But let's say this, if Mikel is as good as advertised and he comes out and just flourishes, just plays free in Pat Kelsey's system, excels, I think that it's going to be a really solid recruiting tool for the Cardinals, because you can't really point historically to the Cardinals being a place where true freshmen can come in and just excel. Like, it just doesn't happen much. So I think that there is truth to this. I think that elite prospects are instinctively watching how Pat Kelsey will handle 5-star talent. But I also don't think it's one of those situations where, like, oh, if he isn't as great to start out with, that they're just going to take Louisville off the list. Like, I think that there's truth both ways. But man, it would be a huge, huge recruiting benefit, and something that other programs can't use against you out on the trail. So I think that the answer to this question is yes, but let's be honest about how much of an impact. What are the chances of Javon Hadley starting? I've been pretty adamant that my prediction for a starting five, based upon my intuition, is Mikel, Ryan Conwell, Isaac McNeely, Kason Pryor, and Sananda Fruit. That's been my predicted starting five. Now, if early November rolls around and Javon Hadley is in that starting five, or Adrian Woolley is in that starting five, I'm not really going to be all that surprised. The thing about it is my prediction doesn't mean that I can't see any other players starting. Like Javon Hadley, if that starting five isn't correct, then one of the players that I would imagine would have deemed it incorrect would be either Javon Hadley or Adrian Woolley, because Javon Hadley was a huge part or a huge player on this team last year. He's going to be one of the leaders this season. You know what you're going to get, that defensive tone that he sets. Overall, just a really good player. So whether it is an indication that, hey, Kason Pryor, we need to take some time to kind of ease him back into the swing of things, or it's a situation where, maybe Sananda Fru's not ready to be that starter right away, and Hadley starts with Pryor or Hadley starts with Fru. Regardless, I could see Javon Hadley starting. I don't think that that's questionable whatsoever. I went back and forth when I predicted my starting five, saying, okay, just how likely is it that Javon Hadley is the sixth man? But it kind of goes back to the point that we continue to make, is that the starting five really doesn't matter as much as who is closing the game. And I could see Javon Hadley being a guy closing the game. It just depends on the minutes distribution. I mean, it depends on a lot of factors. But at this point, I'm not looking too much into what other projected starting lineups are. It's July 23rd. I'm not looking too much into my projected starting lineup. It could change as we get closer and closer to the start of the season. Of all of the players on the men's basketball roster, who will be the largest surprise? That's a tough one, because I think there are high expectations for Mikel and the transfer portal guards, and there's expectations for Ali Khalifa and Kason Pryor and Sananda Fru and Javon Hadley. I'm gonna go with Vangelis Zougris here. I kind of went back and forth between Zougris and Khani Rooths. I think that Zougris is a guy that might not necessarily have an advanced skill set in terms of scoring the basketball, very much a back to the basket big man, around the basket. But what he does well, and that is make sure that no one out hustles him, make sure that no one's going to play harder, nobody's going to take an offensive rebound for him, like that tenacity that he plays with. I got told that, he's showing that he just plays with one speed, even in the summer runs. And that's something that I look at and I'm like, man, that's kind of interesting, but I'm okay with. He's used to, fulfilling that role over in Europe. Is hey, when you're not going to get an awful lot of minutes, you need to maximize the ones that you do get. And that's just a complete reflection of that mentality. So I would imagine that he, at 6'8" and 250 pounds, is that what Zougris is listed at? I think it's 250 or 260 maybe. Regardless, I think that he's going to be a mismatch. I think that this is a team that's, they're going to be able to utilize his skill set, because he might be limited here and there, but truthfully speaking, hey, that's a body frame that's going to give some teams some trouble. So I'm going to go with Vangelis Zougris here for my answer. I almost went with Khani Rooths, but speaking of Khani Rooths, the first question next segment will be one centered around the rising sophomore. We'll answer that question when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. But first, today's episode of the show is brought to you by Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, whether it's game day, and maybe you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes into play. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without all the stress. With the money you save, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite more friends and family. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. It's the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. Like I am going to be using Game Time for the Cleveland Guardians versus the Atlanta Braves in middle August when I am up in Cleveland. And that's going to be the only service that I use. So join me. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Card Nation, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. 3 questions down, 6 to go in this week's weekly mailbag installment. 3 more men's basketball questions. The first of the 3 centered around Khani Rooths. With how solid Khani has seemingly played in these off-season workouts and summer runs, what do you think his development is going to look like for year 2, and could he be the go-to breakout star for the Cardinals in 2025-26? As a freshman, Khani Rooths averaged 3.3 points, 3.0 rebounds, shot the ball 39% from the field, 23% from 3, and 56% from the free throw line. Those are not good shooting numbers. It was a season that he kind of had to, get thrown into the fire, so to speak, because of all the injuries. Thought that he had some good moments early on. As you got into ACC play, struggled a little bit more than he had, but overall thought he gave you some solid effort minutes off the bench. From the people that I've talked to, it seems like he's actually grown a little bit. Listed at 6'8" on ESPN, he could very well be closer to 6'10", which opens up a ton of possibilities for his development. You look at the jump shot; it looks like it's been refined a little bit to where the release point's actually higher up in the shooting motion versus right close to the top of the head, sort of like Kevin Durant does. But even at 6'9", 6'10", not many people are going to deflect your shot anyway. So having a wing that's that large, like the body is fit for a breakout role. Like he could be a mismatch if everything comes together. He's got that effort. I can't really, undersell how much a season or an off season in the college program can be, how much natural progression can take place, especially between your freshman and sophomore season, where a lot of that progression comes from. So I'm excited for Khani Rooths. I want to see what that role looks like for him this season. I've seen the people that have said that they think that Khani starts. I'm not sure about that. I would imagine he's still going to be a really solid bench player or a reserve player off the bench. But regardless, I think that he's going to play a good amount of minutes. I think that the best ball for Khani Rooths is definitely well in the future. But for a guy that is, one of the longest tenured players under Pat Kelsey, right? He spent a full season at Louisville, was able to, just continue to grow up, mature on the court. This year, it's a matter of, making sure you can be a serviceable three-point shooter and just being more decisive, more aggressive, taking the ball to the basket. I think that even though the three-point shot might not necessarily be elite in year 2, if he's able to use his size and strength and get to the basket and finish through contact while being a plus-level defender, that's how you develop into a regular contributor in year 2. So I think that Khani is going to play a key role for this team in 2025-26. Should we be pumping the brakes on generating as much excitement as we are surrounding this roster, calling it one of the better rosters in program history? I've seen a couple people say that. I don't think it's at this point, it's really hard to call it one of the best rosters in program history. Like, I think that is that's pretty rich, but I think that it can be a very, very good roster, and that's what you're hoping for it to be. Like, it doesn't have to be one of the best in program history, although there's a lot of great players on this team, and it has quality depth. And I can't blame anyone for being excited. I think that there's levels to it, but in a vacuum, I'm going to say no. You shouldn't pump the brakes on generating excitement because, like, I get why. You don't want to get your hopes too high and then they come crashing down and, you sort of just hurt your feelings. I don't care about that. Truthfully, it's been a long time since there's been this much excitement surrounding a Louisville men's basketball team. Like, there's been a very, very long time. And I just want to see this program back to where it needs to be. And I think that, the way to get there is, just to have a season like this. And I think with the roster you have, the potential is definitely there. And, you just got to ultimately get to the point to where you're winning a ton of games and beating top competition. So, to kind of circle back around, I'm not going to fault anyone for being really excited. I'm not going to gatekeep the excitement here. I think that it's just a matter of understanding what the expectations are. Like, I personally won't call this team one of the best rosters in program history just because they haven't played a game yet. But I'm also not going to say that this roster is overrated. Like, I think that there's a healthy medium. You can be really excited about this roster, but at the same time, understand that you still got to play the games and you still have to, fulfill the expectations and get to a point to where you are having a really good season that sort of matches that preseason hype. How much of Pat Kelsey's reputation is on the line in his second year with as much hype as there is? I don't. This is an interesting question because, like, his reputation, I guess, as a coach, because we all know he's a really solid human being, but as a coach, I guess it depends on what happens in year two. Like, if Louisville just doesn't have a good season, like if they miss the tournament, then you're probably like, well, what's going on in Louisville? I don't think that Pat Kelsey gets fired or anything like that. Let's say that they are sort of like last year to where maybe they are more of an 8 seed as they were, and the team takes a step back, but with a better team. Maybe that's a question, or that's a conversation to have. But if they win a tournament game next season, it's not really going to hurt his reputation if they lose right after that. Like, I think that I'm not focusing on Pat Kelsey hurting his reputation as an elite coach. I think it's more so proving to the country. Like, I think that you have to ask, how could a really good season change Pat Kelsey's reputation? And to be considered a truly elite coach, you sort of have to have that postseason pedigree to go along with the recruiting, with the regular season success, with how beloved you could be by the fan base. Like, you have to have that postseason success. Like, you have to win a title. And it's a conversation you can have on a different day, is like, to be an elite coach, do you have to cut down the nets? I don't know. Is Kelvin Sampson elite coach? I believe so. He hasn't gotten a national title. I think that it is one of those things to where probably something that doesn't get fully determined in one season, right? It's something that's cumulative. It's also something that changes all the time, like based upon the seasons in such a microwave society that we live in. It's going to truly depend on what Louisville does this year. But even then, like, I'm not going to have a hot take at the end of the year, like, oh, Pat Kelsey's washed or mid, or Pat Kelsey's the greatest coach ever if they have a good amount of success this year. Like, again, it's all about removing the hyperbole, removing the hot takes, and just analyzing, like, going based on what you see with your own eyes. Like, don't cater your takes around what would drive interactions on social media. Like, tell me what you actually think. Like, that's why I'm sort of, resenting the way that sports discussion is becoming, because it's not even discussing. It's just hot takes. Like, there's no analysis. It's just, I'm going to have one point that supports this scorching hot take, and boom, that's what I believe. And it's just like, everyone's kind of just brainwashed themselves into believing, how the media talks about sports. So just kind of my dissertation there. So when we come back, we have some really solid football questions, one centered around Vince Marorrow and just how effective and important he's going to be. We'll answer those three questions when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, we have one more episode after this for the rest of the week. That will be tomorrow, and that will be the final position preview of the series. That is the safety position coming up tomorrow. Next week, there will be episodes either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we'll come back on Friday starting August, where we will be fully into the new season, but we're still in sort of a hybrid off-season month on the show. But at this point, I think that we're going to continue to have mailbags each week, because I really enjoy answering y'all's questions, and I like to have like a community. I like to make you feel like you belong to the Locked On Louisville community, and hey, I like the questions that you all are asking, especially this one. With the way that the current state of NIL and the transfer portal is, how much of a difference will Vince Marorrow actually make? I have my doubts and reservations, but I will listen to your opinion. Well, I appreciate that question, and I appreciate your opinion. Look, I understand it's a new era, but Vince Marorrow is still one of the best recruiters in the country. Without a doubt, look, he's already helped out Jarvis Strickland, the type of prospect from the state of Kentucky that Louisville has never really gotten close to landing. Boom. One of the best, well, actually the number one player in the state of Kentucky. There's been some other players that he's been adamant on pushing those recruitments over the finish lines. Like, Vince Marorrow is the guy that Louisville hired, and I was like, oh, they're serious about taking this program to the next level, especially in the recruiting department. Like, yeah, money's going to matter. NIL is going to matter. That's a given with whoever you could hire. But Vince Marorrow is going to get you involved with players that you're not used to being involved with. And he's going to do so consistently, because what he has done over the past 10, 12 years is develop the relationships with those powerhouse high school coaching staffs and with those trainers and scouts and camps. And the big dog he's here to change this program's recruiting. And I think that he's going to do that. Like, I'm super excited about Vince Marorrow, and I think that he's going to have an important role and huge impact on this team's recruiting. So, of the games that Louisville is supposed to win this season, which are you most worried about? So I guess supposed to win, I just removed Miami, Clemson, and SMU from the docket, just because I think those are either going to be like a low spread games or toss-ups, or maybe Louisville's an underdog. I don't know. But the game that I'm worried about the most, I'm going to go with two. I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to go with two. First one is at Virginia Tech. You have 4 road games this season: at Pittsburgh, at Miami. 2 of those are at NFL stadiums, and then the other 2 at SMU and at Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech is going to be like the NC State of 2023, that hostile environment that really could throw a wrench in your plan. So that's one that, we haven't played at VT since we joined the ACC back in 2014. So really not knowing much what to expect as a program. So that's number one for me, just because of the 12th man with Enter Sandman at Lane Stadium and just being one of the few true road games that you'll play. And number 2 is a home game at Virginia on October 4th. And it's not really an indication of what I think about Virginia. It's more so, I guess you could kind of call it like PTSD from years past. Like, for whatever reason, Louisville just struggles with Virginia. Virginia was not a good team in 23, and it took heroic performances from Isaac Garendo and Amari Huggins-Bruce to win that game. 2024, it took a game-winning drive in Charlottesville to defeat them. So, I mean, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's mental. I don't know if it's Virginia just understanding how to play a Jeff Brom-led team. Regardless, Virginia keeps it close. So that's a game where I just hope that going into the bye week after that week that you're not, just sort of overlooking that game in favor of the Miami game. So I'm going to say Virginia and Virginia Tech here. Final question of the mailbag. Which position group of the positions that you've discussed do you think will be the most improved from 2024 to 25? Well, I can't throw the safeties position out of this question, so we're going to factor that into the conversation as well. I mean, you go down the line, I think offensive line is going to be solid. Is it going to be better than last year? I don't know. Same with quarterback, same with running back, same with wide receiver, same with tight end. Like, I don't think it's a position on the offense because the offense was good and it's supposed to be good this year too. It's a spot on the defense. So will the cornerback room that we talked about and whether or not they can silence the doubts, is that room going to improve more than last year? I don't know. What about defensive line? Defensive line struggled at the start of last season, right? I think that's something that could potentially be the answer. I'm going to go with the linebacker core. I think that the linebackers last year had some good moments, but they also struggled in coverage. Like, it was sort of an all systems misfire on defense, but I think the linebackers didn't really play the greatest. I think Stanquan Clark taking that next step. I think TJ Capers doing the same thing. TJ Quinn coming back for his final season, veteran guy in that room. You also have Caleb Perry from Tennessee, who's played a good amount of SEC ball. Antonio Watts, I think, is going to be able to take another step forward. Overall, I just think that the linebacker spot is probably one of your best groups on the team. And considering, because you're talking about most improved, you got to think about how they played last year. And I think the linebacker core was sort of up and down, better at the end of the year, but still kind of shaky throughout. And I think that this is a room personnel-wise that should be able to take that next step. It should be able to improve substantially more than the other positions because, well, offensively, how much more can you improve from really good, right? And then defensively, which room is equipped the most to be able to improve from last year? And I think that the linebacker group would be my answer. But let me know what you all think about some of the questions today. Give me some of your all's answers in the comments below. That is going to wrap up this Wednesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here for the final football position preview tomorrow. Go Cards.